If you ask a lot of mainstream media organizations, this man, Yoram Hazony, is the intellectual godfather of the MAGA movement. He's a political theorist and a leader in what's called the National Conservative Movement. The conferences he runs attract big shots from all over American politics. J.D. Vance has spoken at NatCon conferences more than once, so has Marco Rubio. In this interview with New York Times columnist Ross Douthat, someone who's interested in these post-liberal right-wing intellectual movements, it's brought up that Hazony regularly has the ear of people like J.D. Vance.
I deliver my advice to J.D. and to other people in Washington, not over the airwaves.
That interview of Hazony by Douthat is called It's Deeper Than Nick Fuentes. It was done in the aftermath of a blow-up on the American right wing about Tucker Carlson interviewing Nick Fuentes. Some personalities and organizations, including a lot of Hazony's national conservative fellow travelers, defended this interview and the idea of at least tolerating explicit racists in the conservative movement. Given that context, the core of the conversation between Douthat and Hazony is a discussion of anti-Semitism in American politics, and if it's possible for there to be a populist nationalist conservatism without anti-Semitism, without hatred, without people like Nick Fuentes, Candace Owens, and Tucker Carlson. Douthat and Hazony, though they don't believe all the same things, both believe that it is possible. They believe that the popular base for some kind of nationalist conservatism is deeper than hatred. To borrow a phrase from George Orwell's Notes on Nationalism, one has to belong to the intelligentsia to believe things like that. No ordinary man could be such a fool. The never-ending search for a thinking man's right-wing authoritarianism, call it post-liberalism or national conservatism or whatever else, is an elite delusion. These ideologies do not motivate what's happening in American right-wing politics. The kind of kinder, gentler, more refined, more intellectual MAGA that Douthat and Hazony are sympathetic to does not really exist at all, except in the heads of our political and media elites. Let me explain what I mean and why I think this delusion is such a problem. Put in the most simple terms possible, national conservatism is conservatism, but for the nation. But we can't really understand exactly what that means unless we understand what the national conservatives mean whenever they say nation. This is what Yoram Hazony thinks. This is from his interview with Ezra Klein.
For you, but what is the definition of the nation?
Okay, so a nation is a collection or a group of tribes that are bound together by mutual loyalty and that share certain characteristics.
So tribes bound together by mutual loyalty and sharing common characteristics. In America's case, Hazony believes that these are the common characteristics in question.
It was possible to have a successful relationship with all sorts of small minority groups when you could count on there being a center. The fact that it was a Christian country, that up until the 1930s, the Supreme Court still referred to Americans as a Christian people, that it was legally a Christian country, that it was culturally run by Protestants, that didn't make it, didn't prevent it from being, despite its many flaws, from being, something that was really beautiful and superior to many other countries in the world.
For Hazony, tribe isn't just some general term that can refer to any random grouping of people. For him, a tribe is a very specific thing that arises from the nature of the family unit and is exemplified in biblical stories.
What most of us are raised on is a view of politics that's, first of all, based on the individual, and then individuals agree to create the state. And one of the central points in my books is that this is not, for most purposes, this is not a helpful way to think about things. Children are born into families. They're not born, free and equal. That means human beings are, by nature, the first nature that they have is not one of freedom and equality, but of being part of a little tribe. If you look at the way that the tribes are built in the Bible or other ancient texts, you'll see that families join with other families into clans, and clans form with other clans into tribes, and tribes with other tribes into nations, and then there are families of nations.
Now, I don't know about you, but I have personally never understood myself to be part of a tribe in the way that Hazony uses this term. My family did not form pacts and alliances with other families, which in turn formed larger pacts and alliances on and on until we had something called the United States of America. I have never felt that my relationship with the American nation is somehow mediated through my relationship with my family, much less through my family's relationship with other families or other groups of families. Pizzoni's whole idea of what the nation is honestly just does not track reality for me at all. What does track my understanding of the American nation is actually closer to what Pizzoni dismisses right at the start of his explanation of tribes and nations. In the United States, we believe that we, the people, came together to form a more perfect union. One of the truths that we hold to be self-evident is that governments derive their power from the consent of the governed, not from a consortium of blood loyalty networks. And I think most Americans agree with me. When you ask Americans what they think is most important to being an American, you'll find that supporting the U.S. Constitution and believing in the principles of the Declaration of Independence are considered some of the most important things, even above being a U.S. citizen, while things like having American parents and having many generations of American ancestors and being Christian rank near the bottom. Right from the start, we can see that the national conservatives aren't actually trying to conserve the American nation as most Americans actually understand it. What they're trying to do is redefine the American nation away from the values that most of us understand and share and to something that most Americans don't see themselves in. This might sound like a small thing, but dismissing the idea of an American national identity founded on allegiance to certain values and ideals as wishy-washy liberal nonsense in favor of a national identity explicitly tied to blood is actually critical to the National Conservative Project. Here's J.D. Vance giving a speech on exactly this point.
If you think about it, identifying America just with agreeing with the principles, let's say, of the Declaration of Independence, that's a definition that is way over-inclusive and under-inclusive at the same time. What do I mean by that? That answer would also reject a lot of people that the ADL would label as domestic extremists. Even though those very Americans had their ancestors fight in the Revolutionary War and the Civil War. I think the people whose ancestors fought in the Civil War have a hell of a lot more claim over America than the people who say they don't belong.
In place of an allegiance to shared values, national conservatives would like us to be loyal to a cultural center. Pizzoni identifies this center principally with the culture of Anglo-Protestants, but seems to say that Catholics and Jewish people have basically managed to make it work as well. What? Cultural center, in the way that the national conservatives use it, is a pretty clear euphemism for rightful culture or official culture or something like that. They think that this rightful culture is under threat by the presence of minority cultures and want aggressive government action to assert the dominance of that rightful American culture. So hopefully now we have a little bit of understanding of what national conservatism is about. Pizzoni does not believe that his ideology, the idea that so many political, media, and intellectual elites on the right subscribe to, has to come along with the kind of hate that we see from people like Nick Fuentes. In fact, he explicitly rejects this idea when Douthat presses him on it.
These podcasters who you're talking about, not all of them, but many of them, I think a lot of people would just say, like, these are part of the constellation of nationalism and populism in American politics. Certainly, you know, Carlson himself was a speaker
yes.
at NatCon, right? And so aren't you then left with the conclusion that if it's not foreign policy that's doing it, then a resurgent nationalism in America was always just going to develop an anti-Semitism problem? But
no, I'm sorry. I mean, I really want to help with that, but I can't. No,
But there's an important question that the proponents of this kind of...
I'm trying to, I'm out of ammo. There is really good loot in front of me, okay? I'm trying to think about how I'm going to navigate this. Maybe I should wait for them to just simply go away? Okay, whatever, doesn't matter.
If intellectualized ethnic nationalism can never answer. If it's so obvious that this movement doesn't have to ally itself with racists, cranks, and conspiracists, why is this exactly what happens every time right-wing populist nationalism leaves the ivory tower and touches reality? Tucker Carlson is one of the biggest names in right-wing political commentary.
Okay. Basically, the question is, can we ever have conservatism without the bigotry, right? And I honestly just straight up think maybe the answer is just no. I don't fucking know. Maybe? Because you're basing your shit based off of what things looked like before. And I think you'll always go back to it because ultimately the foundation that you're basing shit on is something that fundamentally is faulty in the first place, right? Like you should base your beliefs and your ideas off of working data. Okay? Working data, working experimentation, working working theories, testing these theories, and using the scientific method to find out things, right? The problem that I feel like conservatism runs into is that conservatism is like fundamentally opposed to experimentation like that. Like they're fundamentally like just straight up, okay, this is what worked before, so we're gonna go back to what has worked before, right? But I think that's a very flawed thing. That's a very flawed way to look at things. Obviously, right? You guys would know, but yeah, I don't know. Like, there's just which is why, like, I always think that yeah, it has to be rooted in some degree of bigotry. It has to be rooted in some degree of like non-curiosity, right? Like conservatism has to be fundamentally non-curious. And if they're curious about anything, it's about like curious about how you can put past stuff into the present stuff, right? Like, how do you make a new monarchy? How do you make a new fascism? How do you make a new authoritarianism, right? Like, that's the only new that they actually want to go back to, right? That's the only new, is that there is a new old that they can go back to, rather than experimentation with something that is fundamentally different or new, or like actually new, something that is actually different, right? The fundamental like lack of curiosity, but instead it's like curiosity on how to implement old ideas into more like shit like that. I don't know. Jesus.
He's also a national conservative. He's spoken at their conference before. I'd tell you, you could go listen to his speech from 2019 where he toes the national conservative line exactly, but you actually can't just go watch it. The NatCon YouTube channel has put that video on private, unlike seemingly every other speech from their 2019 conference. With a little Internet Archive research, we can see as recently as September 7th of this year, Tucker's speech was still publicly available. What happened between...
I mean, again, they're reactionary, right? Like, I mean, just be real right now, okay? They're reactionary. Conservatism is fundamentally a very reactionary type of thing, right? They only react. They don't try to make something of themselves, right? They only react to what has been lost or what was gone or something that has disappeared from the public consciousness, I guess, right? Oh, things used to be better when gays weren't around. Oh, things used to be better when blah 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 were around, right? It's fundamentally tied to that. But I think that as long as you constantly try to look at the past like that through like rose-tinted glasses, I think you'll always arrive at bigotry, right? I don't know if there's some other way to prevent it, because what you value fundamentally is different from what liberals would value, right? Left-leaning people would value data, science, backed up like procedures and shit like that, right? And I don't even think conservatives even like talking about science and data, even if they take it seriously, right? I don't even think they like talking about that, because it's like, oh, well, look at you talking about facts again. Fuck you. All right? And even then they understand how good it looks, right? When you talk about something that seems to be complicated, right? Whenever Ben Shapiro goes like, oh, facts and logic don't care about your feelings, right? Like that entire meme. But yeah, I don't know.
September 7th and December of...
I've given away 3 Tempest, few Venators, and Berlettas. So far I haven't lost a Patina or Bobcat, but I'm going for it. Based.
This year that would make the people at NatCon remove from the internet.
Why not?
A speech by one of their most high-profile conference speakers and longtime ideological ally. Well, I think one good guess might be that blow up on the American right wing I talked about earlier over Carlson's interview with Nick Fuentes. which happened in October. I don't think I need to go over every clip of Nick Fuentes saying something horrible for you to get the idea of why this interview was so controversial on the American right wing.
Sorry, am I making any kind of sense at all? Like, do you guys process what I'm saying and actually gleaning some, like, even if you disagree, right? Even if you disagree, are you gleaning some kind of, like, conclusion? Fuck, maybe I'm not putting it in a good way. Am I? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I'm putting it in a coherent way. I have to think about what I'm saying. Because I know what I'm talking about. I have this idea in my head on why this happens, on why conservatism seems to always fall back on bigotry, and why this seems to happen, right? But I think it's kind of hard to understand, hard to explain for me, I guess. Like for me, from my perspective, it's just hard to explain. I just don't know. I just don't know any good way to explain it that well, I guess.
Tucker and increasingly radical, but basically in good standing.
Is bigotry? No. It's like why bigotry is inevitable. Why bigotry is inevitable from any kind of pursuant of conservative values. Why it is inevitable to have bigotry. Why we'll always go back to bigotry, no matter what form of conservatism it takes, right?
Member of the National Conservative Movement having a friendly softball conversation with someone like Fuentes was just too much for many conservatives. Certainly, it was too much for Yoram Hazony, who'd like populist nationalist conservatism to be divorced from Fuentes' open hatred and anti-Semitism. But Yoram Hazony's reaction to Nick Fuentes' platforming was not representative at all of national conservatives generally. Of course, Tucker Carlson took his own side, but so did another one of the most popular podcasters in America, populist nationalist conservative Candace Owens. She blames the Zionists for trying to cancel Carlson and Fuentes. Matt Walsh of the Daily Wire broke with his co-worker slash boss, Ben Shapiro, who denounced Carlson's softball interview of Fuentes. Walsh said that conservatives, including people like Fuentes and Carlson, needed to work together to defeat the left. But this wasn't just populist nationalist podcaster solidarity. Even some of the more allegedly intellectual and respectable NatCon affiliated people joined Yoram Hazony's war against Fuentes on the side of Nick Fuentes. Adrian Vermeule, a Harvard Law School professor, national conservative, and man who believes that America should be a Catholic theocracy, seriously, gave us the most pretentious defense of welcoming
what, like a caliphate but for Christians?
People like Nick Fuentes into the conservative movement.
Catholics,
History records many cases in which cities fell to siege because even with the enemy at the very gates, factions within the city could not put aside their mutual struggle for domination. In such cases, the consequences are typically catastrophic for all the...
I thought I was following, but you're asking, like, why for real? It's because conservative at its core has natural inequality and a natural order that must be upheld and protected. No, not necessarily. I think... I think I need to think about it a little bit more.
Defeated. The attitude of let the city burn so long as I can rule over the ashes is idiotic. It is the enemy outside that will rule. To translate this, he's saying basically the same thing that Matt Walsh said, which is that people like Fuentes and Carlson and all those cranks on the right are fundamentally on the conservative team, and therefore they should be considered allies in the fight against the left. Kevin Roberts, president of the Heritage Foundation, a hugely important conservative think tank that's very much affiliated with the NatCon movement, posted a video condemning people who were trying to cancel Nick Fuentes.
The American people expect us to be focusing on our political adversaries on the left.
You know what? If I ever end up talking to Ryan Geddie, I think this would be a good question to ask him, right? I think I would need to prepare a list of questions if I'm going to, like, interview him or some shit, right? Wait, hold on. Let me get back to him real quick.
not attacking our friends on the right. I disagree with, and even abhor, things that Nick Fuentes says. But canceling him is not the answer either.
J.D. Vance, the most high-ranking national conservative in U.S. politics, condemned infighting on the American right and said that he would work together with anyone who cared about immigration and our sovereignty. Here's how Fuentes interpreted that post by Vance, someone who Fuentes hates, by the way, because Vance has a...
Because it's inherently reactionary. Yeah, it's just such an interesting question. Sorry, I legitimately think it's a really fascinating question. But that's like the nerd side of me, you know? I'm like being a nerd right now. I'm like thinking, because this is like liberal philosophy, right? Like this is more political philosophy more than anything that I think you guys would find interesting, right? Because I'm thinking to myself, why is it that one thing will always tend to go in one direction? Always. Why does it always go in one direction? Why does it? Like genuinely, why does it always go in one direction? Even though the initial movement will never base itself off of that initially. Why does it always go in? It's just so interesting. Like, it's like a flowing river. And yeah, I don't know.
Non-white family.
I would have to think about it. I need to think about it.
Because the Groypers are on the one hand saying, hey, listen, fat boy, we want America first. You want to run for president? We want to hear you say America first. Why would you condemn the young white men of America and sell out to our elites? We'll be there. We'll be in Iowa. We'll be in every primary and caucus state. So he doesn't want to condemn the Groypers.
Speaking of Vance, he also endorsed a book calling everyone left of Attila the Hun unhuman. Unhuman. So intellectual. So concerned with national unity. So respectable. All these people, from the media personalities to the politicians to the intellectuals.
Blue Eyes, ASMR, CCP, Slop Queen. ASMR? I would never listen to myself for ASMR. But you know what? Why does electricity flow in the direction and not the other direction? It's a first principle? No, I don't think it's that simple. If you've not watched it before, it's not entirely on point, but I think you find it super interesting. But Corey, Robin, Given Doc. And by the way, even if electricity flows in one direction, like even that has an explanation for it, right? Like whatever wire you ground, like if you ground a circuit and you complete the circuit, right? Like the electricity will always go to the ground, right? Like it will always flow in the direction of the ground or some shit, right? Like that is the explanation for it, but I want to find what the ground is for that phenomenon. Yeah, it's not entirely on point. I think you find it super interesting, but Corey, okay. You're also plugging AC versus DC. Sure. But I'm just saying, like, it's just like even that has like explanations for them. Yeah, at least we figured that part out, right?
Are perfectly comfortable working with explicitly racist and anti-Semitic people. If Yoram Hazony can't even get populist nationalist conservatism without hate to stick among the people that he has direct access to, the intellectual, political, and media elites, people that have spoken at his conference and are allegedly somewhat deep thinkers, how is it possible to believe that national conservatism can be separated from hate at all? At best, they've decided that they can control the cranks and the racists. At worst, they don't really disagree with them all that much. At the beginning of this video, we talked about how most Americans do actually agree that when it comes to being an American, values are important. One of the things...
Listen, Macabest might actually miss Ryan Geddie calling in, okay? If Macabest misses that, rip, okay? Rest in peace.
That you notice when you pay attention to the whole post-liberal national conservative crowd is that they're constantly asserting that what they believe in isn't just some idea or creed or proposition. Oh no, the national conservatives are much too based and red-pilled to believe that people can really commit themselves to an idea. It's not like there's any examples in history of people living and dying for ideas. We can't think of any examples there, can we? I sometimes wonder if this rejection of the power of ideas to bind people together says more about the post-liberals and the national conservatives as people than anything else. You can't imagine being bound to another person by shared, strongly held ideas. That feels ridiculous and kind of nihilistic to me, but I digress. They think that one of the things that makes their ethno-nationalist idea of what an American is better is that it's not just an idea. Here's Senator Eric Schmidt.
The Continental Army soldiers dying of frostbite at Valley Forge, the Pilgrims struggling to survive in the hard winter soil of Plymouth, the pioneers striking out from Missouri for the wild and dangerous frontier, The outnumbered Kentucky settlers repelling wave after wave of Indian war band attacks from beyond the stockade walls. All of them will be astonished to hear that they were only fighting for a proposition. They believed they were fighting for a nation, a homeland for themselves and their descendants. They fought, they bled, they struggled, they died for us. They built this country for us. America, in all its glory, is their gift to us, handed down across the generations. It belongs to us. It's our birthright. It's our heritage, our destiny.
Now, isn't this just pretty self-evidently absurd? What the NatCons want us to be committed to is as much a proposition as anything else. Yoram Hazony's idea of a central culture made up of Anglo-Protestants along with room for some other Catholics and Jewish people is just an idea. It's certainly not a revealed objective truth, considering that the whole interview between Douthat and Hazony only happened because there's been so much anti-Semitism on the nationalist populist right wing. These guys tell themselves and everyone else that they're being so much more realistic or are somehow uncovering the real way the world works. Modern ethno-nationalism hasn't always been a thing. It's not something that's been around forever. People came up with it. Before we had states that were organized around particular nations, we had states that got their legitimacy not from the people in any sense, but from an appeal to God through a king or an emperor or some other divinely ordained ruler. The idea of a modern nation state, or even the idea of clearly defined, relatively stagnant borders in a lot of the world, is only several hundred years old.
Or skin colors, right? Or skin colors, right? Because when it comes to skin colors, like, weren't some people doesn't actually flow. Okay, you know what I mean, okay? Oh my god, rolling eyes emoji, okay? But, yeah. Like, who can be considered white, right? Who can be considered white? The definition of who can be considered white is expanding. So this entire idea of, like, white supremacy is also relatively new, right? Because that's expanding. I don't think at some point anybody would ever consider, like, Nick Fuentes, a Latino, by the way, with the conquistador blood, all right, to be white back then. No way, right? Absolutely no way. Even his name, Fuentes, even that is, like, fucking fundamentally non-white, right? Yeah. Oh.
A lot of historians will even say that the first true modern nation state was actually revolutionary France, hardly the based and red-pilled national conservative ideal, since it claimed legitimacy not through a monarch, but through the French nation. But all this is starting to get much too complicated and dangerously liberal. So better to just pretend that your ideas are truths that have always existed since the beginning of time. No one came up with them. They've just been revealed to you by God. The point I'm trying to make here is that no matter what the national conservatives say, they aren't in possession of some ancient truths about how the world really works. They're people with an idea about how the country should be organized and defined, just like anyone else. And honestly, who are these guys to tell us that we can't have a society where people are held together by a strongly held commitment to ideals like liberty and equality and a government of, by, and for the people? When you ask Americans what makes someone an American, it seems to be ideals like those. I understand that national conservatives are very concerned with national unity.
It is palpably tottering in the direction of dissolution and civil war all the time. The only way to improve that situation is to reassert some kind of cultural center. Okay, that doesn't mean you have to hate anybody who's not included, but there has to be some kind of cultural center.
But why should we believe that their idea for America would somehow be more uniting when it straightforwardly declares that everyone else's culture is inherently subordinate?
You know what? You know what I think? I think fuck. I just want to say something really stupid, and because I just don't even care anymore. I just want to say something stupid. maybe conservatism is all about maximizing stupidity, okay? You find the most stupidest idea and then you maximize on that one, and that's why all conservatism tends to lean towards bigotry, is because they look for the most stupidest fucking retarded idea, and then they'll always try to lean towards that. They'll try to at first rationally trying to explain it using some kind of logic and some shit, okay? But eventually they want to go all the way to the full mental retardation, okay? It doesn't even make sense, okay? Because it's fully mental retardation, all right? Mental retardation doesn't need to make sense, okay? It just needs to be an agent of chaos, and an agent of chaos it is, okay? It's meant to destroy society. Chaos God has taken a hold of all the evil politicians in our country, all right, and maximize for conservatism, okay? This absolutely retarded, flagellant idea, fucking phallic, all right, limp-dicked idea of conservatism because you're too cowardly and too virgin to like venture into new spaces and new ideas and new fields and new experimentation and shit like that. There you go. That's my retarded explanation for the whole thing, okay? Fuck trying to figure it out. I've been thinking about it for way too long and I give up, okay? You're welcome. Anyway.
Ordinate to the Anglo-Protestants. I seem to remember some Anglo-Protestants who said that all men are created equal. That feels like a much more uniting idea than whatever the national conservatives are trying to serve up. The idea of a government enforcing a dominant culture above all the rest of the cultures that exist in the United States does not feel very uniting to me. That does not seem like a recipe for national unification. It wasn't very uniting back when the know-nothings were at it. It wasn't very uniting when George Wallace was defending segregation by talking about how it was necessary in order to protect the dignity of the great
Scotland.
Anglo-Saxon Southland.
From this cradle of the Confederacy, this very heart of the great Anglo-Saxon Southland,
I thought he meant like
today we
Lionheart.
sound the drum for
Okay,
freedom, as have our generation of forebears before us done, time and again down through history.
Aiko rules made her chat members only, so I unsubscribed and came here. What? Why would she do that? Also, what the fuck is she up to these days? I know that she's still in the anti-fan circles, but like what the fuck is she doing these days?
In the name of the greatest people that have ever trod this earth,
Jesus.
I draw the line in the dust and toss the gauntlet before the feet of tyranny, and I say segregation now, segregation tomorrow,
anti-fan streamer.
and segregation forever.
In his interview with Ezra Klein, Yoram Hazony does something really irritating when Ezra Klein rightly presses Hazony on the fact that his movement is actually not doing anything to bring this country together and is actually, in fact, in reality, making all the disunity problems that Hazony and the National Conservatives claim to care about worse. Here's what he says.
If you're positing your nationalism as somehow a balm to the post-election divisions and the delegitimizing of the other side we've been seeing, there's some contradiction there you're going to have to unpack for me.
Yeah,
Oh,
there may be
my-
more contradictions. Since there are questions of political theory, which I think apply everywhere and all the time.
I was looting.
Pretty much. And then there are
cool.
questions of current affairs.
Hazony, in one way or another, across all these interviews, does this contradiction bit all the time. Anytime he's pressed on the real world actions of real world populist nationalist conservatives and how their behavior does not line up at all with the goals of national unity that Hazony claims to care about, he basically just waves it away and dismisses it as unimportant to the abstract philosophy of national conservatism. All the ugliness of the Trump administration, it's just one of those things you can't control. We shouldn't judge national conservatives based on how they're actually acting in the real world. We should judge them based on a hypothetical version of the ideology that only exists when Yoram Hazony is talking, or whenever Ross Douthat is hoping for a kinder, gentler post-liberalism in the New York Times opinion section. And look, I can appreciate the value of a philosophy. I have abstract ideas that I'd like to see.
How do you even look? How the fuck are you supposed to defend yourself against some fucking asshole who is like out of nowhere? Okay, you can't defend yourself. All right, you can't defend yourself. The time to kill in this game is crazy. Okay, the time to kill in this game is unfair. Anyway,
implemented too, but Yoram Hazony and national conservatism are being billed as the philosophy driving the movement behind Trump and Vance. But it's really just not true. It's a nice lie that convinces our media and political elites that the MAGA base isn't all that unreasonable. They have this ideology called national conservatism, which can be reasoned with, which can be argued against. There's such a desire to find intellectuals who can explain what's happening on the American right without the insane conspiracism, without the racism, and without the anti-Semitism. Increasingly, people...
Hello, who's winning? I am, by the way. Brian Geddie followed you. You're welcome. Because I asked for a follow. Got him. Anyway.
Like Yoram Hazony, who can synthesize a reasonable sounding explanation for the MAGA movement that sounds respectable to people who care about being reasonable and respectable. But this misses the point so badly. It's a delusion to expect there to be some reasonable and respectable explanation for MAGA.
One step closer to the top? I mean, to be fair, a few months ago, like, Destiny's fucking former BBD chicks were, like, DMing me first in order to, like, tell me to not defend Destiny. So, I mean, it's more like reclaiming the ways that I have already lost, okay?
Because frankly, MAGA is not reasonable or respectable. And I'm tired of people pretending like it is. I'm tired of our media and political elites pretending like there's some fundamentally reasonable or respectable people at the head of this thing with a plan to stop things before...
He's so right. He's so right. The guardrails are not railing guard, okay? He's so right for this. Fucking guardrails, okay?
It gets too out of control. I think on some level, a lot of elites on the left and the right find it uncomfortable to actually look at the MAGA base. I'm not talking about swing voters who just hate politics and voted for Trump because of that. That's a whole different story and kind of person. But whenever you look at the actual MAGA base, look into their eyes, what stares back is a 20-part series by Candace Owens about a 100-year conspiracy to cover up Brigitte Macron secretly being a man, amateur demonology and World War II revisionism by Tucker Carlson, and a Gen Z Nazi. Hazony's ideological comrades won't denounce this stuff for a reason, because they know that this is...
Why is chat chugging along at a snail's pace? Wait, what? My chat? My chat is as regular as it can never be. What do you mean? Also, if anything, it's like going at a faster pace than I expected for a political video. Like when I'm talking about like Destiny drama, it goes by at a crazy pace. But typically for a political video, like chat goes as slowly as a snail. And yeah, it's actually going at a faster pace than I thought. So
the base. They know that at some level there is no transformation of America.
Oh, like I'm
from a country founded on Enlightenment liberal principles to an ethno-nationalist state without the cranks and the racists. The National Conservative Project would be a monumental undertaking. It would require the fundamental reshaping of how millions and millions of Americans define what an American is, while at the same time explicitly relegating it.
Shaken, not stirred.
Snail, Borzy, thank you so much for the $10. Wait, Borzy, who are you? Are you Atheries in the server? Atheries, something. Yeah, boy.
Anyone who's not part of that core culture to a second-class status.
I appreciate that.
How is this not inherently hateful and divisive, not even considering the literal violence that is being committed and would have to be committed at a much larger scale if the National Conservative Project was to succeed? But anyway, if it was to succeed, it couldn't just be an elite movement. It would need to be enthusiastically supported by all the populist nationalist energy in the United States. And a lot of those people, as we can see in the comment section below Yoram Hazony's interview with Ross Douthat, are pretty hateful. Outside the podcast studio, in the real world, the populist, nationalist, conservative base isn't interested in national unity or peacemaking or ideology. They are interested in irrational, hateful crusading against anyone they think isn't a real American. Anyone who believes that there can be a more respectable thinking man's MAGA severed from this reality is at best delusional, and at worst trying to give intellectual cover to a movement that they know is hateful and an ideology that could never be implemented without an incredible amount of injustice. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video, comment, and subscribe to the
If only he didn't spit so hard. But he's right. There's no such thing as intellectual conservatism. What the fuck is intellectual conservatism? Damn. I wish Ryan Geddie, you know what Ryan Geddie should do? He should debate counterpoints. He should debate counterpoints. There's like, what the fuck is intellectual intellectual okay, man. Anyway,
the channel, share the video with a friend so that way it gets seen by more people. I really appreciate it. I also want to say thank you to all my channel members. You make this possible. If you want to become a channel member and support me and get your own name in the credits, you can hit the join button on this video or on my channel. Thanks again. I'll see you next time.
Damn. Wait, hold on. Wait, the only place that has mushrooms is damn Battlegrounds? What? Really? Okay, whatever. It's good. Intellectual conservative sounds like some made-up bullshit Connor would say. He would say that, wouldn't he? He would be like, oh my god, intellectual conservative. Oh my god. It's so epic. Intellectual. Oh my god, Tito. Oh my god, Serbia. Oh my god. Yugoslavia. Yeah, get me out. I feel like an asshole. No, you're fine. There's a lord behind you. No, I'm not gonna explain it again. Oh my god. It's nothing. It's literally nothing. Not the double air fisting jerk off. Dude, you're the one that said that, okay? Why am I face red again? What the fuck? Okay, how's some too? More like blue gay. Am I right, guys? Oh. Did you have alcohol? No, I didn't. No, I don't drink. I didn't mean it like that. No, you're fine, bro. You should fake a lord? No. Am I a VTuber? Or am I a real human being? Need to be fake or real? Supposed to treat them with respect? Well, I mean, if they wear a hat, why should you treat them with respect? Fuck that. I had a dream. I was gaming with Dan Saltman and he sucked ass. Your dream is not too far off from reality, okay? Jesus. Wow. Hasn't got absolutely cooked by Destiny? He looks really stupid. Asmongold is just, oh my god. He's something else, man. He is something else.
Really cool. Amazing. Like, this is really cool. I think this is awesome. I'm really excited to actually try out the first game. I feel like Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 is like definitely one of those those like neckbeard games that, you just kind of have to fucking play.
Yeah, I'm gonna play the fuck out of this. I'm gonna be honest. I have to. Like, I mean, it's literally a medieval sword game. So, like, I have to play the game.
Boys, we are gonna finish this game. Wow.
Finally become a man.
I feel like for guys like me, you know how like I was saying the view wasn't for me earlier? Because I'm not a 37-year-old disenfranchised wine mom. Well, this is the opposite. This is completely for me, and it's all about me. I feel like I'm the target audience. Men only want one thing, and it's fucking disgusting. You know, this is fucking amazing. This is awesome. Wake up. Time. We have waited years for this game. And it is finally time for us to play it. This is...
Except that he literally sucks at video games. Like, he actually sucks at video games. Like, unironically, he sucks at video games. Like, in general. He's not even, like, a gamer. He's like... He's a total fakie.
So weird. I don't even know. How do I interact with people without stealing and killing them? I don't even know how this is supposed to work. Oh my god. Oh my god, bro. This shit is hard.
Get moving.
Jesus Christ.
Get moving, bitch.
Like, it's hard for me to understand what to do in any video game ever with anything. I can't follow directions or understand anything naturally or like with any intuition. So anytime that I have something explained to me, I just don't really listen or hear it. Is this the gay run? I'm gonna be...
He thinks every game is World of Warcraft. He thinks every game is World of Warcraft and its objective is clear to you. Bro. This is not a real gamer, okay? Everybody knows that a real gamer is intellectually curious, okay? They want to find all the secrets. They want to find all the side quests. They want to find all the Easter eggs, okay? This is not a gamer, okay? This is a pussy, all right? This is an unmanly individual. I have more men inside of me, okay, than Asmongold does on a good night, all right? Pause.
Be honest, now that I know that there's a gay option, I am thinking constantly about every interaction that I have with Han. Who's this guy?
What do you want?
What?
Well, fuck. I can't even do anything. What is this? Dude! Okay. I don't know if I can play this, bro. Like, this shit is,
By the way, I just want to let you guys know, okay, this is the average life of a peasant who grew up during the Middle Ages, okay? Alright, if you're an average motherfucker, you're gonna get cut down like the motherfucker you are, okay? You're not gonna stand a fucking chance, alright? On average, yeah, this is what it's like, okay? So you want the good old times to come back? You want these kinds of times to come back? Tough luck, kid, okay? You're gonna get cooked, alright? You're gonna get ultra cooked. You're gonna get so cooked. You don't even have time to process how cooked you are, okay? If you've ever been transported back to Stone Ages.
Shaken, not stirred. Asmongold plays like a bitch. He should go back to Rune Factory.
Bro. You should go back to Script Simulator, okay? AKA World of Warcraft. Thank you for the $5, Corey.
It's you.
this shit is fucking brutal. This is brutal, man. You're level 1, the guy...
What's brutal is watching this guy cope about how bad he is.
fully
Holy
geared.
shit.
I just... Like, I don't know anything about the game. Like, I feel like I'm kind of just, like, making a million, like, different mistakes, and I just don't understand really what I'm doing, and I'm totally, like, a fish out of water in this game, honestly. I feel like an idiot. Yeah, GG is quitting. I am. I'm quitting. Yeah, it's just... I don't... Yeah. Yeah, we're done. Alright. Yeah. You like...
Bro, look at the way that he is acting. It's so cringe, bro.
I'd be fine. I have henchman man at arms physiognomy.
Thank you, Real Incre Viking, for the SEK50, okay? I'm pretty sure you're not actually Viking, but... I don't think that's Viking income. Wow.
I don't... Yeah.
Look at him, look at him.
Yeah, we're done. All right. You like the game? Keep playing.
That sound. Oh my god.
I do, and I just like I don't really know what else to say
Like,
other
what the
than
fuck
the
was that
fact
sound?
that I really just
AOT
don't like
tribute?
playing
Oh, no, that
long
is-
form RPG games on stream. I just don't like doing it.
All right, Asmongold, it's time to go back to the mines, okay? All right, it's just like you said, okay? Dumb people have to go back to the mines, okay? People who cannot play a simple video game has to go back to the mines, all right? You have to go. It's time to break big rocks into little rocks. The time has come. Time has come for you to break some rocks, okay? It's time for caveman work. You have to do caveman work, okay? This guy would get quartered for not farming enough turnips. True. Oh my god, facts. Oh my lord, not the turnips. This is so cute.